I'll just do 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And then
Wait, so on. Okay, thank you for
On one.
on one.
on one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm trying to be confusing, okay?
Yeah.
Keep this in.
Yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Outage Podcast, very first episode. With me tonight, I have the spirit of indecisiveness, Ryan.
Why does love hurt more the closer we get?
Okay. And with me here also tonight is the god of glizzies, Levi.
To quote Star on Nujabe's Feather, and I drove the Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Singing this will be the day that I die.
My god. Okay. All right. As your host for tonight, I am the spirit of unfortunate circumstances, legally distinct from that one book series. My name is Kent, and this is the Power Outage Podcast. Like I've mentioned before, we talk TV shows and discuss them together as a group and share our opinions with the world. A disclaimer, all the episodes that we're going to talk about are not going to be spoiler free, so if you don't mind spoilers, keep listening, but if you do, you can skip this. It's okay, we're not going anywhere. Go ahead and watch the show and come back. So, in our very first episode, we're going to talk about one TV show, one very special TV show. It's called Mystic Pop-Up Bar. If y'all don't know what that is, it's a Korean comedy drama about a woman named Wooju who has to spend over a century of her life, 500 years, 100 years, who knows, it's a long time, trying to comfort the spirits, trying to alleviate of their grudges before they move on from the living realm. And yeah, I guess with that synopsis, we can go right into some questions I have for the group. So maybe we'll go a bit general here, folks. What are some highlights, some lowlights from the shows? To clarify, we've watched the first 6 episodes, so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
This is my first K-drama, I will say.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And I enjoyed the first 6 episodes. When we were picking out a show to all watch together, this was definitely not just on name recognition. This was not at the top of my list, but once I started to hear more about it, I was really sold on the idea of how weird it was. And yeah, it kind of lives up to that. From episode 1, it got very weird, and then it continues to get weird as the first few episodes go by. Some of the comedy works. I actually found myself laughing out loud, but there are a lot of misses for me that feel a little corny or cheesy, but I think that's more in line with Korean comedy. But overall, from these first 6 episodes, I like the show a lot, and I'm very excited to finish it. There are only 12 episodes, and I don't think there's going to be a season 2, so I'm excited to see what comes next after these first 6 episodes.
Okay. And Levi, how about you? Some general feelings towards the show?
This is the second K-drama that I've watched. The first one being called The Sound of Your Heart, which is also on Netflix. Check that out if you'd like. There are 2 versions. This being the second, I guess this is my only real introduction into it. The first one that I watched, that first K-drama I mentioned, didn't really... It had the quirks and the cliches and conventions of K-drama. However, I guess this follows more beats of it, including like the sound effects, everything like that. It has the whole shebang compared to The Sound of Your Heart. Overall, I liked it. Thought it was slow in the beginning, or even just the first setting of the 15 minutes. Didn't think I'd like it that as much as I did. Cried a few times. Yeah. Didn't think it would hit the heartstrings that much.
Definitely. We're pretty new to K-dramas. This is my first time watching a K-drama. I watched some Korean movies, but then not TV shows. Yeah, I'm glad this was the first one I watched. I like the synopsis because it's weird. It's up my alley. So I think with like the the corniness. It's like similar to like Filipino TV shows where they have like sound effects with their comedy, if that makes sense. And it's like very exaggerated body movements with like the sound effects along with them.
Yeah.
Like when they raise an eyebrow, it has like that sound effect.
Yep.
It does that. So I guess like coming into it, I was already kind of familiar with the comedy. But like what was also interesting is that, like Levi said, gets you in the heart with all the things that it portrays, especially the circumstances of Woju, the spirit who has to like comfort all the spirits. I guess maybe our next point for that is like, how do you feel about the story? Do you have your thoughts about the story, and we can move from there?
So with the story, from the synopsis, it sounded pretty interesting. But as we saw the story unfold in the first episode, and we got to learn more about these different characters, I had a feeling that it was gonna, as much comedy as there's gonna be a lot of emotion, especially like you said with Wolju, her story, her trauma as a child to now in her modern time. There's a lot there to unpack, and each episode so far has been kind of slowly unpacking each trauma that she's dealt with, and like how it's still affecting her to this day. So I'm liking that part of it. I think what's cool about the show is that she is very comedic, but you can tell that she's kind of masking her emotions through her comedy. She's trying to like kind of put on a brave face, and she doesn't really like to get emotional in front of her team, I guess, unless circumstances arise. But overall, I'm liking the story. I like the world building that they're kind of doing with each episode. They're kind of explaining more about how the spirit world works, what the rules are, and I'm kind of liking those aspects of it. And yeah, overall, these first 6 episodes, I think it's paced pretty well. Episode 6 ended on a kind of a good conflict, so that's why I'm excited to see where the story goes from there.
It's a good point that you brought up the spirit world, because currently that's where we are right now, right, folks?
Yes.
Like where we live right now, there was again, hence the name of our podcast, a power outage. So we really enjoyed the show, and we wanted to talk about it. So we got our recording equipment, sent ourselves, walked down the path of light to the spirit world, and that's what we're recording right now.
Sir.
You might hear some spirits wandering around, trying to condone for their sins or something. I don't know. There might be some wailing, but who knows? That's what the spirits are. Well, yeah, Levi, how do you feel? Storyline, characters,
storyline. I liked how they did it. How they brought in the flashbacks to further characterize Woju, and then they integrate it with the story. So basically every conflict that the episode is revolving around has to do with her past, and this is kind of where she feels obligated, or she feels a connection to the other characters. I enjoy how they play them out, because they end up going very heartfelt and not necessarily fairy tale, but it's a very comforting conclusion.
I think when we talked about this before, just to like get a feel on the show, I think the show, if you were to like compare it or mash it up with something, it's like The Good Place meets Persona 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not much like The Good Place in terms of like the philosophical meaning of what it means to like afterlife or the ethics of life. Not really like that, but it's like, people trying to deal with the circumstances of what happened when they were alive, trying to amend it when they die. That kind of aspect for The Good Place. And Persona 5 for the weird aspect of, entering dreams.
Yes.
Entering people's psyches and trying to resolve it from there.
The setting from episode 4, the karma centric episode with the lottery dream, that one's very similar to The Good Place from what I've seen. I've only watched maybe a few episodes of it. But when they talk about how karma basically is a currency, it's this whole setting of the dream world and the afterlife. It's connected to to the real world and the past, and then their karma had affected them.
That's true. That was the quote, right? Like, money means nothing here. The currency is good deeds, and that's the only thing we can trade here.
I don't know if it's me, but I feel, as I wrote down the summary, or I guess issue of each episode, I noticed that there's a pretty big jump from the first episode to the second, in regards to the topics and the settings. For sure, the first episode, where we intro the whole world and the characters of the whole show, It goes from like workplace harassment and sexual harassment, but then it goes to murder, and this is the second episode with the adopted daughter and the mother with the past. I felt that was a very weird contrast, or the jump from the severity, I guess. What do you guys think?
I feel like I felt that contrast once we got to episode 3, where the first two are the first one, workplace harassment, was definitely, kind of set the tone, but then episode 2, it kind of lessened. There was a murder, accidental, but still it happened. But then by episode 3, it became, a guy, hard on his luck with employment. I mean, a real issue as well, but it, again, compared to the first 2 issues, it tamer, I would say. I did feel that contrast, but I think because this show is so comedic, if they kept dealing with darker issues, I felt like it would feel off. The tone would feel off sometimes. But I'm liking the issues that they're dealing with. Like you said, they are kind of relating back to Wolju's past. So I guess if they kept dealing with darker stuff, I felt like, we're just gonna make Wolju such a very sad character. I mean, she already is, but I don't know how much more they could impose on her.
For me, I didn't feel the contrast for me, because I think from the very first episode, I kind of knew what they were trying to do. The preview of the second episode was definitely a shock about, like, there's a murder that happened. But watching the episode, I don't think the focus was a murder. I think the focus was how one's actions led to somebody's downfall, and then living with that for the rest of their lives, trying to make amends. I think that was the general theme for that episode. That goes to the overall umbrella of this entire show, where it's just talking to people that are just down on their luck. Probably issues that you all deal with on a regular basis. To an extreme, like, whatever bad things that are happening to you right now, you're at a point where you kind of need to have somebody to talk to about it. And I think that's what the show is, and that's from what the first episode was. I personally didn't feel the contrast. It was shocking, but I don't think I didn't get that whiplash effect, like, oh, that's out of place. I don't think I felt that, because I think that central thing of, like, trying to help people who are just down on their luck and they need that extra push is pretty consistent throughout the 6 episodes that we watched.
I wouldn't say the I'd say maybe the transition. It's not so much the contrast or the weight of it. It's just it goes from a very current to, like, they're both guilt related, the first 2, but then it goes to really deep rooted guilt for the second episode, where her past was completely haunting her. It changed her whole position, where how she treated her adopted daughter. She kept quiet about her cancer, just everything. And then you find out that she's a very redeeming mother, even if that wasn't her overall intent from before.
I think maybe that's why they had that as a second episode, because they were trying to resolve of, like, Woju's issues not having, like, a closure with her own mother in her past. So I think they did a shock for the second episode just to get people to watch the second episode, and 2, as a nice tie-in to flesh out Woju's past and, like, why she does the things she does, why she thinks the way she thinks. And also as a nice, like, litmus test for how Kangbei, and that's how you pronounce his name, Kangbei, like, interacts with these spirits, like how, because he's a nice boy. He's such a nice boy. And then, I think it's just a great intro session for him to, like, oh, Kangbei, like, if you're gonna be working for us, you're gonna be dealing with issues, so how do you deal with this? This is probably what we're gonna be dealing with for the next 11 episodes. So
I mean, I did like that fact that Kangbei, for the second episode, when they were trying to hire him, this was their first kind of, like, true test to see if he would fit for the Mystic Pop-Up Bar mission. Was that, Wolju was first against having to help the main conflict in episode 2 because she was a murderer, and it ties back to her past where, spreading lies, spreading rumors is what got her mother killed, and this is what the person in episode 2 kind of did. She was spreading lies, and it did get a person killed, so that we can understand why Wolju's so against that. But then it's Kangbei who kind of makes her see, like, people can change, people can take accountability for their actions and know that they did wrong. Even though they committed the wrong in the first place, they can learn to accept, like, oh yeah, that was my fault. I do feel guilty for that, and it doesn't mean that people are irredeemable. So I like that aspect of episode 2.
I think like episode 2 definitely sets up the dynamic for the three workers at the pop-up bar. Yeah, like I think it stays pretty consistent. They do grow as a group together, but the episode 2 definitely like sets up the entirety of like what we've watched so far up till episode 6.
I think they wrote the characters pretty well. They complement each other. You have Woju with this past, and then she has this aggression towards humans that she carries on, even though she has this goal that she has to fill this quota. Then you have Chief Gui, who's just, and he's kind of like RIPD, where he's known for the law, but he's also level-headed. And then you have Kangbei, who's the optimist, and he's clumsy, and he's the human that I guess Woju kind of needed to balance themselves out. So they make this trio of just, they kind of complement and make up for each other's shortcomings. The second episode is them testing the first heist. They're changing the heart. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, changing the heart. Okay. I know we dipped our toes to deep stuff, but then I think I mentioned before how that first episode was basically the first palace of Persona 5.
It is.
Yeah.
It's basically the same scenario.
Yeah.
Kamoshida.
I guess like maybe, I mean, I joke about it, but then I think it's just how prevalent this issue is, and then how common it actually is in our own daily lives. But I think that's what's great about this show, is that they're able to talk about these kind of uncomfortable topics, maybe not in the most nuanced way, but enough for you to feel cathartic about them resolving it by the end. I definitely felt that by episode 3, because even though it's like ridiculous trying to bring down a corrupt hotel system, there's some catharsis in there that's like, yeah, this dude that was down on his luck finally got it. He finally deserved what he got. I don't know if you want to speak about like how that show is able to like tangle the uncomfortable situations while also having such a lighthearted tone with it.
I think I get it. I get like the lightheartedness because there's only 12 episodes. These episodes are already an hour long. I get it. They're just trying to it's like a freak of the week kind of situation. You have a problem, deal with it, and kind of move on. So I can see like they don't want to delve too deep into these issues, because after episode 1 we do see the victim in episode 1 throughout the next few episodes, but like she doesn't address anything that happened to her. And I think that's fine, with the story they're trying to tell. They don't want to get too dark with it. They don't want to kind of address the issues anymore, because, it's just one episode kind of deal. I feel like if this was a kind of a longer running series, maybe they could kind of deal with these issues more, kind of address them over each episode. But I think just having a kind of checkmark, lighthearted tone ending for the characters is kind of, I guess I just see why they want to do that. They just kind of want you to feel good about it at the end. Because I think, I'm trying to remember, like all these endings, they pretty much all end happy. There's no real true dark ending for one of the people they try to help. I'm interested to see if that will be the case for one of these episodes moving forward. If they reach a person that they truly just can't help, and that person's just kind of locked out. I hope they do address that further on. But I mean, yeah, for now, the issues that they've dealt with, they just want to give you the moral. They can't really give you the moral if there's no like real resolution to any of these issues that they deal with.
They kind of did it in episode 6, no? Like where they helped somebody and then they had the consequences of helping somebody, even though the rules of this world is good deeds will get you far in the spirit world. Well, that good deed led them to an arrest, I guess, by the end. Yeah. So maybe they'll address it, but Levi, how do you feel about how they intersect the lightheartedness and the uncomfortable situations?
I feel like you have to have a level of realism in the show, especially because it's a K-drama. They want to still focus on the relationship and romance aspect and the comedy there. I feel like if you kept the nuance of reality there, it's you're kind of forced to with the genre, as it's called suspension of disbelief. You can't really... I feel like the tone would be generally darker and different. I feel like it's not impossible to do, But for what they have set up already with the characters as well, I don't think they would want to take that turn. But then again, I'd like to see that further explored, maybe in another show, if just similar, or if they were to do maybe a follow-up season.
I think what they have so far is fine and good in my eyes, because the central focus is not necessarily the people they help in each episode. It's Woju trying to come to terms with how she feels about human beings. And I think maybe that's the overall goal. I know we can go to theory crafting at the end of this, but I think her trying to understand that each human, each case that she's going through is different, is unique, and you kind of have to approach it differently. You can't just have like a broad strokes approach trying to deal with people's lives. And you kind of see that in like Woju, because Kangbei is a nice boy, but he's also a very naive boy.
Yes.
And it's nice that you can see Woju like showing that experience of like, you can't just like help people by just helping them. You have to be very direct and very specific, because if you're not that, then you can't really help anybody. I think that's what the vibe I get from her as a character. I guess my next question is kind of related, because we talked about catharsis and all that. The actor for Kangbei, I forgot his name.
Yok Song Jae.
Yeah, okay, Yok Song Jae. I think this is from the comments. I didn't actually search it up, as in from like from like an article or anything. But apparently, he described the show as a healing show. How do you feel about that descriptor for the show? And like, if yes, if you agree, why? If not, why?
Well, okay, before I get into that question, I just want to say, if any K-pop people are listening, I feel like it's my duty to say that Yok Sung Jae was a member of the boy band B2OB. I feel like I had to say that.
Yes, when I was watching the first episode, I was like, he looks like a K-pop boy band member. Lo and behold, when I searched him up, he was.
Yeah. I felt
Woju was also Wojo was also in a K-pop band.
That I did not know.
Yeah, she looks like it.
Yeah, yeah. I think like only Chief Gui. I think he's like actor.
He looks like an action star.
I think so. He is.
Well, this is.
Those action scenes of him.
This is him settling down. Kind of. The only supplementary media I've seen of the three was maybe like a media video where all three of them are making lunches or boxed lunches for each other.
Oh yeah, that was in my YouTube feed as well.
Yeah, so I watched that and I'm just like, whoa. So that was when I first found out that Yok Sung Jae is a K-pop star. He's a singer, and then also just everybody else. And it's weird just to see them out of character, just because they do have chemistry, but they play it very well in the show.
So going back to the question of it being a healing show, I will say, like, because each episode deals with a different realistic issue, yeah, there are episodes that kind of hit you harder because you can kind of relate to them more. I think to me, the one that hit me more was episode 5 with the guy with I guess dementia or Alzheimer's, where
or was he denial?
I think it was like dementia.
Oh, okay.
I think
so
that's
it was
the medical diagnosis. In that
episode.
So yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that one hits hard if you ever lost a loved one, and then just kind of that whole episode was kind of a whole turn, because what you find out about what he's actually dealing with, he was dealing with a death, but then you kind of realize who the death is, and then also learning he has dementia. There's just so much layers to that episode, so that one hit me hard. And the ending they gave is kind of a sweet, sad ending, but it was still a good one. But I think with episode 4's ending, where Wolju literally looks at the camera and just breaks the fourth wall, and it's like, yeah, she literally says to the camera and to the viewers, just check on the people in your life, communicate, maybe just talking to them and seeing how they're doing is good enough. And it is kind of cheesy, but I felt like if she did that every episode, that'd be fine. But it just felt weird that, like, out of nowhere, she just breaks the fourth wall. Because I think with each episode, they can look at the camera and say the moral. And you know what? Yeah, I'd still get it. But yeah, I agree. It is a healing show. There are things that you can relate to, and it kind of gives you hope that these issues can be solved. I think, episode 6 had a good explanation to it where it's like a spicy crispy chicken where you just let things cool and it'll get crispy and be better. So when you're dealing with issues, just let things cool down and they will be better. It's so simple, but it's
Life is fried chicken.
Yeah,
or whatever meat.
Yeah, so I think yeah, I agree it is a healing show. That's why I like it as well, because they deal with so many different issues, all realistic. If you relate more to one specific one, it's not cleansing. It's fulfilling to kind of see the better side of things. But yeah, I'm glad that how they handle dealing with the issues and seeing how much you can learn from what they talk about and how the characters deal with certain things.
I do agree with the healing aspect of the show. I feel the overall moral of each episode relates to a realistic theme or an issue that prevails in people's lives. But the overall message of the show is essentially just to open up and be vulnerable. I believe in the 5th or 6th episode, maybe in the 4th, but the 5th or 6th episode, the latest episodes that we've watched, they even mention a line about how the healing process kind of starts once you open up or once you get the ball rolling. And I feel like this whole show is, I guess, just what I'm getting from it is that there's so much great that comes out of being vulnerable and I guess opening up for your traumas and just hearing yourself out. It's, I guess, with each different topic, it's sort of kind of addressing the elephant in the rooms and destigmatizing them. I really enjoy it. I do think it's a healing show.
Yeah, I think episode 6 kind of really hammers that home, where I think they're thinking it. They don't say it out loud, but Wolju says, like, when you reveal more about yourself, and when people start to reveal things about themselves to each other, they can see that they relate more. They can see how much they can relate to each other because they start to open up and see that maybe they are dealing with the same issues. I'm paraphrasing it badly, but how they talk about it in that specific episode was pretty good. I liked how it was delivered and what was said during that moment, because it makes sense. Like, you don't know what people are dealing with until you open up, and maybe they can relate. You feel isolated in your own thoughts, but once you kind of share it, you can see that people can empathize with what you're dealing with, or are also dealing with it themselves. Yeah, I just wanted to get that out.
That definitely like adds into like why I also think it's a healing show. I think you already covered a lot. I say it's also like a healing show for the characters, because they also have to go through things, and I think helping these people, as much as like it's kind of their job or quota, I think it also heals them to understand different perspectives and like really understand like how shitty it is to be living in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And because they are like spirits at this point, they have like the two of them at the very least have like this almost immortal in our eyes view of like the world. And it's nice, one, they have Kangbei to like really ground themselves, but also like having to deal with these people really heals them and like ground them to the human perspective. And I guess from the viewer's perspective is also healing, especially if an episode you relate to it in some way. The show does a good job of like trying to resolve it in a way that's cathartic. It's like, yeah, I needed that.
Yeah,
and that really speaks to like what Levi said. I was like, once you start opening up about these problems and going for help, because asking for help is obviously a brave thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. I think the first episode does a good job of like setting that up.
Mm-hmm.
Once you open up and like once you ask for help, like there are people who are gonna help you, and I think that's what really makes this show a nice healing show.
Speaking of catharsis, some episodes really seem to hit home. I don't know why. I don't know how they get in there. I don't know where they're coming, and they're coming through my throat. But what episodes really stuck out to you guys, or really settled it with you guys?
For me, it's the 3rd episode.
Oof.
I think on a very personal level, it hit me because that whole episode was about a young man out of college finding employment. Oh, like I don't know, whoever's listening, my current status is that I just recently graduated, and I'm also having a hard time finding a job. So that episode really hit me hard. I think that's why I really like the show. Maybe not as nuanced, but really trying to show every side of this situation, because so much things of what he was going through and how he feels and how he like feels with other people because of his status. I definitely feel it as well. Like the pressure from your family, the people you're close to, feeling like if you go out, or when we can go out, sure, but like, we're dating this episode. Like feel like going out with other people who are paying for you consistently, even though, you know, like you wish you can pay them back the favor of like treating them to a nice meal or something, but you just can't do it because you're constantly getting rejected. And like, okay, look, when he was working like in his store, and then he was like, he saw the email and it's talked about his application thing, if he got through or not, and then he scrolled it down very slowly, and then the words just said, "We are looking for other candidates," or something like that. I had to pause the episode and I was like, no. I was like, this is too real. This is too sad. Even right now, I'm kind of get teary-eyed. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, it's like that whole episode just teared me up. That entire sequence of him just like so down on his luck, even having to break up with his girlfriend because like he just feels like he's so inadequate. And I think really, speaking of who is currently like this, I think that's the overwhelming feeling that you get when you're unemployed, is that feeling of inadequacy, because you tie so much of your life trying to find a job, but then now you just can't, and that inadequate feeling is just there. And I think that sequence of that episode really showcased that very well. I have like other episodes I want to talk about, but I'll throw the mic to both of you.
I'm gonna jump in because the third episode, you prefaced before that it hit a heartstring with you, a chord, and it did
a C
to
chord,
me.
yeah.
It did to me, but not in the same way. More specifically towards the romance side, if you're fixating on the whole relationship aspect, where he felt like he didn't want to feel burdened by his girlfriend, who was clearly at least stable or fine, and she was okay with it, but he just couldn't feel guilt or just burdening her and feeling that he's not good enough for that. And that was just like, yeah.
His girlfriend was a real one.
Actually, yeah. The whole scene where she's like, yeah, we're gonna go home to eat in front of the other two rich or successful couple, and it's like, she's a ride or die.
Paying his rent. Like, come on.
Oh. Yeah, and that's after they broke up. Oh, I was like, no. No, I was bawling my eyes out. I'm just like, why? I don't need this. But at least
I am in this picture and I'm offended.
Yes. I don't like this. They went to my life somehow. They wrote it down and they posted it. And I feel like at least what really cheesed me, at least related to the whole perfect candidate thing, because he was ready and he was prepared. And then at the end of the day, it was just nepotism that lost him the job. And it's just like, wow, that's really how the world works. And that's where a lot of, I guess, advancements in hiring comes from. Not probably to that degree, but it's there. And it sucks. Oof. Ryan, take the mic, please.
I mean, yeah, I that's kind of where I relate more. Where, I mean, I get it. Networking is so important these days, but you know, sometimes just you may not have the right connections, but you are great for the job, and you just don't get it because you just don't have those specific connections that can nail you the job. So I can relate to that a little bit. And yeah, it was a very sad episode. You know, speaking earlier to how it is a contrast between the first two, but it still hits hard because of just, I mean, our ages were all around his age, so we're all kind of like dealing with what he's dealing with, and we can relate to almost every aspect of what he had to deal with in this episode. So wow,
now more than
downer right now.
Yeah, honestly, top two saddest scenes in the show. That whole sequence of him, top two.
And it's pretty fitting for the time now, especially for the time now where we're recording this, where we're talking from inside our homes and not together.
Yeah, that's why we're in the spirit world, though.
Yeah.
But
I will say that there were highlights to that episode where you had the comedic relief of Kangbei when he started speaking English, and when they were in the dream world, and they had the whole interview process, and it was nice too because you got to see I forgot the dude's name, but when he was nailing everything, you're just like, wow, like, yo, he's prepared, he's clearly for it, and he's about it, and he's done his research. It made him not getting the job all the more, I guess, bittersweet, but then the resolution at the end still just made it like, oh, okay, yeah.
I cried a tear when that phone call from him, that final phone call at the end of the episode. I was like, yes.
And then they're eating in the restaurant back together. I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
love
like,
still exists. Love still exists.
Ryan, was that your episode, or was there another one you were
I spoke a little bit about it earlier, but I mean, episode 4 I think hit me the hardest. Just seeing this guy, kind of first we think he's just kind of dealing with the death of his mother, but then there was a lot of twists and turns in this episode I didn't really see coming until it happened, but we kind of learned.
Episode 5.
Episode 5, yeah, I was about to say.
Sorry, yes, episode 5. My bad. Yes, sorry. I didn't binge it, but like these episodes kind of blend so much together that I forget where these things happen. But yeah, sorry. Episode 5 is where we see this guy where he's kind of he's subtle, like it's so subtle, but like he kind of forgets certain things, and it's kind of affecting his performance at work, even his quote unquote social life. He goes home early, he's just alone most of the time. We learned that he has this wandering spirit following him, which kind of brings in the mystic pop-up bar gang, because the department head, or Death Yom, he kind of tasked them with this mission to deal with that wandering spirit. And we learned that
which Ryan you work closely with, right? Because you're the indecisive spirit.
Oh yeah, so many people just so a lot of indecisiveness can lead to death. So
not gonna lie, that's me when I'm indecisive.
Yeah, exactly. So
So you're speaking from experience. The wandering spirits are like. Yeah.
He's almost done.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So I guess I don't want to spoil it if people do end up watching it. I mean, there's a lot that we spoiled, but like I feel like that one I'll just keep away. But I just not personally relate to his issue, but I feel for people like that who have dementia, who can't remember small moments with people, and that's one of the many things I worry about if I ever grow old, where you just kind of lose these memories, and you forget these moments with your loved ones. And it doesn't matter if it's the big moments or the small ones. The small ones make those big ones worth it, make life worth it. So
stop, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, I know, that's why someone take it from here. But yeah, that episode just really hit hard.
I will say that an episode that didn't really that struck the hard chords, but on a more positive note and not so depressing, or I guess more so just hopeful, was the actual episode 4, not the one Ryan misidentified. The one about the lottery dream and the whole aspect of karma. It was nice to see, first off, hey, the whole generational wealth and I guess escaping poverty. It's a toughie. But then also seeing someone who I guess worked hard, and it was nice to see how lighthearted his character too was. The dude who did win, Jindong's great ancestor. He had the techniques down in that weird one-legged fight thing.
Karate Kid moment.
Yeah,
exactly. Karate Kid moment.
Exactly. And then also too, just the whole not ramifications, the elements of the good deeds you do in your life, they accumulate. Not so necessarily like in the good place where it's kind of a currency, or not even in here where it's in a bag that you can just, I guess, trade and save people, I guess. Yeah, it's nice to see that it's just they take that route that's just like, oh, we still care about doing well and just being good to each other.
Speaking to that, I have before I get on to the other 2 episodes I was thinking of, but speaking to the good deeds thing, I think maybe this is the cynic in me, but the one that the one person who was wealthy and good deeds, I thought she was gonna do a heel turn, being like, "Oh, I actually kind of need these to move on." Mm-hmm. But it's very nice that she did not do that, and then it compounded more into her relationship with Jindong's grandmother when she visited her in the dream, seeing no, there are good people in this world, and even after death, they're willing to help you because of how you meant to them. I was like, that's a really nice message to show.
It was also cool too that she transformed it into a Rasengan or spirit energy, and then she used it as like Bengay or Voltaren, and she's just like, you're healed. Your back is healed." She starts dancing. Yeah, it's just like,
I guess like the message of the show is anime can save your life.
Yeah. It's just, you need some Rasengan up.
Yeah,
you need to power up sometimes. You literally need to power up. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of the other two episodes, I think episode 5 and episode 6 are like the slowest burns in two different ways. Like episode 5 was that slow burn of like slowly figuring out why he's acting like the way he is and like why the wandering spirit is like that. And the payoff of it was, that thing when he was in the boardroom and when everything starts clicking, like, I was like, I need to pause this episode. It was like, oh.
Yeah, no, once he just kind of, when he left the room and he was like outside and everything's clicking and you just see the flashes and just the acting of first off in that scene was like, wow. You can really feel the pain that he's going through as he's starting to realize more and more things.
And then for episode 6, it's a slow burn because like it doesn't just get any better before before the heist, the actual heist. Like we talk about Persona 5, but like they actually had a heist.
Yeah.
Okay, I will mention two things. So for episode 6, the whole farting scene where they're trying to infiltrate, I was like, okay, this is where like I guess the Asian exaggeration comes in. I guess it's akin to Filipino sitcom acting, but it was just like, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's nice to know that there's times when they really don't take themselves seriously. They really don't.
And then some of them were like, I don't know if they were breaking character, but you can definitely see them smiling.
Oh yeah.
It's like this episode is also still about infertility, but yes, we'll do this.
I was just saying like the slow burn, because like it just doesn't get any better for this couple, and it's like so heartbreaking to see. They're trying so hard, and then the husband, another real one. Like the husband's a real one.
I will say I'm surprised they didn't take that route that you said, where for the other episode where it could have went sour, where he was just like, oh, maybe it's gonna be a marriage story type thing, or he just caves in. But no, it's just like, oh, okay, it's just like good and it's nice, and just like he's aware and he's aware of his partner's feelings, and he's just like, no, like. Yeah, he's still trying to be supportive no matter what, and it's just like, oh, damn.
Like the thing with when he was with his wife in their bed, just like talking it through, and he was like, "You look sick. Like we can't keep doing this." When that whole scene was happening, I was like, I gotta know, like, you a real one. I don't know your name because I'm bad at names, but
I can't say it.
Yeah, this whole 6 episodes, they like to roller coaster. They also like to tell you like there are real ones in this world, you know. It's just about finding them.
Ain't that the truth?
So yeah, speaking of like real ones, and all about just finding them, we haven't mentioned about Yorin yet, or Yaorin. I don't know how to pronounce her name, but
I don't know
the
either.
bodyguard who is not susceptible to Kangbei's powers. Oh, I don't know. We should have just mentioned that. People have powers in this show. Woju is a spirit who, if they drink a magical elixir, they are able to enter the dreams of that person to resolve them, any guilt or anguish they have. Kangbei has a special spiritual power where if people touch him, they're able to open up about their innermost doubts and feelings towards him. Hence, that was like the whole inciting incident with the whole show, is that Kangbei is able to help Woju achieve her, was it 1,000,000? 100,000?
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000 alleviated souls. Yorin, on the other hand, is different. She also has a spiritual power where I guess it's like negating other spiritual powers.
Power of gout.
Oh, power of gout. That was a funny thing because I have gout and I was like, oh my god.
Haha, that's me.
Yeah, just tying that back to my opening quote. That's where my opening quote's from. It's from the Gout Lovers tagline. Why do we hurt so much the closer we get?
Honestly, I was laughing at that, but I also had this existential dread that's like, is this what extreme gout is? That if people just touch it?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I'm not that familiar with gout, but I'm pretty sure if you, is it that serious, or even touching even the air can affect you?
I think maybe that was just probably played up for jokes, but I don't know. A little part of me was like, I hope it's not like that. Because I have that.
There's a subtext at the bottom that says, "This is no real representation. Consult your doctor."
Yeah.
I will say that I like the writing of the fallacies, or I think it's a fallacy. The follies of each person's power. You have Woju, who has the power to heal, but she hates humans. You have Chief Gui, who has like physical power and he can fight, but he's not in the situation to. You have Kangbei, who can't really control who opens up to him, so he has to be selective about it. And then you have Yorin, who she repels kind of naturally, yet she wants to attract somebody. A love interest.
Her power's interesting because, I mean, she's also not aware of it, like how Kangbei is. She can kind of piece together that she has something about her when in episode 6 where we learn that every time she confesses her love to people and then when they have contact with one another, then they repel. Because we see her, I mean, she's literally a bodyguard and we've seen her touch multiple people in different episodes. So it really only works when she confesses her love to them, it seems. But also in episode 4, we see her walk through death and he kind of gets a negative energy from that. So it's interesting to say like what her power really is and how it works. And I feel like, I mean, it's kind of leading that way. You know, where does Kangbei and Yaorin's powers come from? Where does it stem from? Is it their ancestors? Is it something else? So I'm curious to see more of that and see how it all relates.
I guess if we're gonna talk about Yorin, I'll put it out there how y'all feel about her. But I want to talk about her relationship with Kangbei, and I think it's the weakest storyline, to be honest. I think there's like 3 central narratives of like each episode. Before Yaorin was introduced, it was just Kangbei trying to like his daily life. But then now it's become like Kangbei trying to like be with Yaorin and all that. Trying to, be friends with her. And then the other storyline is like Woju's relationship with humans and like her trying to meet this quota, and then her growing relationship with Chief Gui. And then the third one is obviously like the monster of the week, the case of the week storyline of what they're trying to solve. And I think out of all those 3, I just don't think Yorin and Kangbei's storyline is as strong as the other 2. Maybe because it's just new with the whole like dancing thing, like they're trying to connect with each other. But I just feel like it's like I am just waiting for this scene to end before like, oh, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get the stuff that makes me cry. Let's go.
I will say though, however, in regards to the relationship, it does seem weak, but I do feel like as comic relief, or I guess a break from what's going on, it's used well. So say even just how they met or how awkward Kangbei was, literally the quote, not paraphrasing of course, but he's just like, oh, when I touched you I felt nothing, kind of insisting something else, and you're just like, oh, of course he'd say that. But then also I guess they use it as a plot device, so it's for plot device and as fan service. It's just like you're giving them what they want to see, but also it kind of ties the whole story from when her first appearance was in the 3rd episode when she was the security guard for the hotel manager or hotel tycoon, to then the 6th episode where their motivation is they're trying to win a dance competition, which brings up the infertile woman, which is the dance teacher.
I guess I can agree, yeah, it is the weakest. I personally, I don't mind it. I think what I don't mind more is just the dance competition aspect. I just don't see where this could lead. I felt like that's not necessary to the overall plot unless something happens at the dance, but for all I know, nothing will. And the fact that it's still kind of, I think it's like 3 episodes worth spent talking about this dance competition. It feels like I like to see more of their relationship, not as crushes or whatever, just seeing how they can relate to one another with their issues or with their powers specifically. But I do like in, I think, episode 5, where we kind of, it's a natural kind of attraction towards one another, where, they stand up for the blind man who's getting complained about
Berated.
by berated by someone just because he has a seeing eye dog. That moment was nice. I guess I agree that it is the weakest out of all the storylines that are running right now. I'm more so interested in her powers than her relationship with Kangbei, but I guess this is the only natural way to make it flow without her either just joining the team outright. But it could change once this dance competition is done.
I think too, once we develop that relationship between them, you'd also be able to see, okay, what can we integrate? So say if they're having some troubled, or I guess messy waters, where they're trying to figure out the relationship, or they're fighting, and seeing how that could affect the dynamic between the group if she does join.
Yeah, because for all she I forgot that she still thinks that they work for the CIA.
I completely started on that. The whole
Chief Gui has transforming powers.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that.
Oh, there's so much to the show. So yeah, let's there's some theory crafting that we can do here. There are some loose ends that we could probably connect because we haven't seen the other 6 episodes. The one question in my head is Chief Gui. He's the prince, right? That's what I'm getting at. I feel like they're faking it out with them showing that when Woju was taking care of Kangbei when he was sick, and they flash back to the prince. But I'm some clues could be Chief Gui, because Chief Gui was I was a nobleman, I can write, and that whole thing about I want to be the person that something that you need.
Yeah,
the same thing the prince said in the past.
It's weird though, because of the whole dynamic that they had when they were young to how they're characterized now.
I don't think she's aware that he's the prince.
I think she doesn't know, but he knows.
Oh.
But there's that moment in episode 6 when she brings up her mother, and he has a weird look when she brings up the mother. I mean, I'm not saying she is the mother. He is the mother, but there's something there. I don't know. I feel like they wouldn't have put an emphasis on they wouldn't have shown him react so distinctly when she brought up her mother. My running theory was that he was the prince, but then after that whole thing in episode 6, I'm not that sure anymore.
I'm still thinking he's the prince because he brought up he was a nobleman in his previous life. And who was a nobleman? The prince.
But wouldn't he have some memory? Or is it if it's just because he doesn't have any full-on mystical ties like she does?
That's what I'm saying. I think he knows, but she doesn't know.
Okay.
Yeah, because when we flash back to the prince after Wolju kills herself as a child, he says that I will find you once. I will find you again, even if it's as someone else, something like that.
Yeah, in the tree, or what you call it, the best friend, quote unquote, stalking the pop-up bar. He was I found you, prince, or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, I found you, your highness.
It could either be Kangbei because that's what they're alluding to, but I also feel like it's Chief Gui over there.
Yeah, I don't know what his issue is with Wolju, because even when they flash back to their first meeting between the friend and Wolju, you're he's just angry at Wolju. I'm just where's this coming from? I mean, I would assume he, unless it's just the basis thing of he just hates that she's a lowly person in their society, but I feel like there's something else there, especially because he's roughly still the same age, so he is some sort of spirit thing.
I will say this: it might not be true because you don't see it a lot, but the best friend loved the prince, didn't like it that he loved somebody.
I mean, else. I would love that turn as well.
I mean,
I'm
2020.
I'm always shipping for best friends to become gay lovers, so
yeah,
that ties into a thing later on.
Well, I'm assuming that's what it is, or it could be a more more obvious answer where it's he just didn't like how he was marrying somebody who's not royalty.
Yeah,
which is the boring answer, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't want to say that it's just that, but
maybe it's boring. Maybe it's because he heard the rumors too, because it was the whole talk of town.
I think that's the only loose end that I can think of, that whole who's this guy. Who's the stalker?
Who's that?
There's another one that I want to bring up is like what was on the scroll that made Wolju reconsider having to do the punishment. Because we see her as a child talking to the underworld empress, and she says like, it's either you do this punishment. No, it's she doesn't even give her the option. She says you're gonna do this punishment, but Wolju says no, I'd rather spend like eternity in the underworld and just give me the torture there. But the queen, the empress of the underworld, gives her a scroll. She reads it, and she grows up to be the present day Wolju, and she just says yes, I'll do it, and she's just very sad at what she read. So I mean, I'm curious as to what really made her change her mind. I'm assuming it has to do with the prince, but I don't know.
Maybe her mom.
I was gonna say like we should show it to somebody who can read Korean, but I also felt like we saw the writing, right? It just didn't get translated.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like it's not.
Yeah, was it gibberish? Because like
Korean lorem ipsum.
Or we should show it to somebody who can read Korean, so
okay,
we'll know.
We have some options.
I was gonna say like maybe it's a choice of like, what was it, like a secret or what? Like what were you thinking, Ryan?
I was thinking, well, before the flashback where we saw that the prince sees the tree and he vows to find Wolju again. I thought it's like the prince was one of the 100,000 people that died initially, and she wants to, I don't know, give his spirit some, like, I don't know, I felt like by helping these 100,000 people, these people that died initially will be given a better life or something. I don't know, I felt like it was something like that. But after we saw that the prince did make it out alive after Wolju killed herself, I felt like I don't know anymore.
Well, I feel like it's still pretty reasonable, or it's just everybody's thinking. Like they've already alluded to it. The romance finally coming through. The prince is gonna somehow come in, or Gui is essentially gonna wife her up, I don't know in regards to like an overarching story after, like, it's like past the dance competition, and like once we get closer. I don't know how do you guys feel about we have 6 episodes left. I think they were kind of timing it out with like an episode a person, so then she'd probably reach her quota by the end of the season. What do you think it goes from there, or how it goes there?
I think she'll reach the quota. I mean, I would hope that she reaches the quota by the second episode, if not, but the second last episode, if not maybe the third last, just so the last episode's kind of whatever big finale they have and kind of an epilogue to all the storylines that they have set up. Because then if they reach the quota at the last episode, I feel like that has to be such a big moment, or a big, whatever issue they're dealing with has to be a big one to kind of wrap everything up. Unless one of the people that they have to help is someone very close to them, someone very tied to their storylines. But besides that, that's where I see that going.
That's where I was going as well. Like, it has to be a big one. So like my 2 leading things of how she's gonna get that last one, it's either she's gonna help Kang Bae in some way, or her final one, it's gonna be like, oh, I've helped like 3 other people, why hasn't like the counter gone up? And then the empress will be like, the last person you need to help is yourself.
Whoa. Yeah, I was thinking I was thinking it might be that too.
Yeah, it's like that's the last person you need to help, and it's like her resolving her issues with the living realm. So yeah, those are my 2 leading things.
Okay, if you're going on that, where she's healing herself, who knows? Maybe if there's an allusion to the prince and he has a similar power, or he has some type of power, maybe it's similar to Kongbei, and maybe that's where I guess you have the payoff of all of her frustration resolved, where she's just like, oh, I do understand the true nature, or I'm finally coming to the realization that why I shouldn't be mad at humans, or that they're not as bad as they think. Like, very cliched.
Well, I think we can leave off our theory crafting for that, because we do have 6 episodes. So before we leave transition, final thoughts, your 1 sentence about these first 6 episodes.
사랑해요.
What?
Did you love it? Is that what you're...
Yeah, love is the answer. Hope the next 6 episodes don't make me cry as much, if not more.
I see. Mine is, if you want to be healed, watch this show.
Go to therapy.
Or on that line, it's cheaper to just watch the show than go to therapy.
There you go. There you go.
Right, how about your sentence?
He's living up to his name.
Yeah, you are the indecisive spirit. Yeah.
I'm very indecisive. I mean, I could just go off that and just be like, if you want to feel, you watch this show.
Really makes you feel.
Like Persona 5.
Okay. All right. Okay. We got that out of the way now. So, folks, how would we unplug for a bit? Alright. This segment, it's called Unplugged. We're just gonna talk about the things that, we've been keeping up with that's outside of Mystic Pop-Up Bar. Because we also like other things. Us being spirits and all that. The indecisive spirit also likes the spirit of America. That's why he's gonna talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, so, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the American Eagle show. So, I'm a Marvel fan, so of course I wanted to check this out. And this is the second Marvel show that come on Disney Plus. And going into it, there's a lot of advertisements for the bicker and relationship between the title characters. But I wasn't expecting how real and emotional it would get with its episodes. Seeing, the big arcing thing is Sam worthy to be Captain America? Is America ready for a black man to wield the shield? And the show gets into that through one of its characters, Isaiah Bradley, who is a character from the comics, and it's played well by Carl Lumley. He's done a lot of voice work, but he's also such a phenomenal actor as well. Without going too much into it, I think overall this show, touches on those things pretty well. I think that's one of the more emotional thrusts of the show is dealing with Sam's. Is it necessary for Sam to be Captain America, or do we just put a white man in the suit? And the show also deals with that, like the government choosing to put a white man as Captain America and seeing the ramifications of that, the effects of that. Going into the show, I wasn't too keen on these two characters. I like them in the movies, but I think what I really like about this and WandaVision, it gives a lot of more background and more emotional moments with their title characters that probably wouldn't get these moments in the movies, but I'm glad that they devote all this time in a show for them. Anthony Mackie sweats charisma. He's great in the role. I like what they gave him to work with. I think he is very well suited to be the next Captain America. And in the show, in the universe, and in real life, he does have an uphill battle to deal with, the government, and deal with the world in the Marvel universe, people's reactions to seeing a black man as Captain America, as well as in our world outside of the spirit world that we're in right now, where people are gonna have some sort of negative reaction to seeing a black man in the Captain America suit as their new hero. It will have, it will hit people like how Black Panther affected, people, but it also, bring on negative fans, reception and reactions. But overall, I think the show did it well in transitioning Sam to that, because if you go from the ending of Endgame to just transitioning him to his own movie, I feel like you're missing a big chunk of Sam's journey to become Captain America. And I felt like this show kind of provided that process for Sam. Like, Sam's not just gonna do it. He's still reluctant. He's still indecisive to become Captain America. So I really like that. And Bucky's storyline, I enjoyed. I wish they dealt with it more, but I felt like Sam's was the main focus because of the role he's about to take on. But I felt like Bucky, he had some emotional moments. Sebastian Stan is really great. He has a lot of emotional scenes because of the trauma he had as the Winter Soldier and having to kind of repent and make amends with people that he's harmed in the past as the Winter Soldier. So seeing his journey to kind of accept that and become his own hero in his become a hero in his own right was really good as well. Overall, I think those two characters do it well, but there are a lot of issues that I have with the show, with its villains, with its plot threads. I felt like with the 6 episodes, there was just too much thrown at it, and it didn't feel as tight, and the finale didn't feel like the best conclusion because it leaves a lot of things off. I know because they're trying to set up other projects, but I felt like as a show, it just left a lot of loose plot threads and things just didn't feel as impactful as they wanted to. They kind of felt rushed at the end. But I still enjoyed it overall. I would probably put WandaVision over this as a show just because it's tighter, and there's more emotional moments there with the characters. But I still would recommend people to check this out. I think it's worth it if you like watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, I also watched the show, and I think coming into it, I was like, okay, this is another one of these. It's let's see how it goes, especially because it's because you brought up how like Sam trying to be Captain America. I believe is also his struggle in the comics when he became Captain America.
Yes,
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Emulating that. But I think my major concern coming into it was the same criticism I had with like the previous show, WandaVision, is that I hope they don't meander, and I hope they also have well-developed villains. Well, I can safely say they did both. It's 6 episodes, but it felt like if it felt like watch the first 2 episodes and then the last 2 episodes, you have your story.
Yeah.
Because like the Flag Smashers, like they again, like it alludes to what you said, like they throw a lot at you. The Flag Smashers, Zemo, other things. Power Broker. Wow. Sharon Carter, Power Broker. Spoilers, but like not really.
Yeah, you see it coming pretty early on.
So you see from far away. Yeah, I do like those 2 characters. What you mentioned, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like how they delve deep into their own personal lives and what that translate to their own hero identity, I guess. Like Sam trying to be this new symbol and his struggle for that. And it's not Sebastian. What's his character name?
No, yeah, Sebastian Stan. Yeah. Oh, you mean Bucky Barnes. Yes.
Yeah, Bucky, like trying to not be the Winter Soldier anymore, but he has to accept that he was the Winter Soldier, and him trying to move on from that, which he kind of gets some closure by the end. But I also do agree, like this show, like WandaVision, at a lot of times, it's very obvious, feels like a setup rather than like we're doing a show. It's just it feels like some parts of the episodes are like we're setting up for other properties. Which is like what you get out of Disney Marvel stuff. That's kind of the trade-off you gotta get when you're watching these things. But I think for the most part, I still did enjoy it. But like what you said, Ryan, I think WandaVision's a better storyline, and I think once episode 3 hit, I was like, can't wait for Loki.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do you have any final thoughts before we move on?
Not real. I mean, I'll just wrap up. Like the action is can be hit or miss. I when I talked to Kent before about the action, he brought up how it's a lot of fast-paced camera movement, and episode 6 was definitely a lot of that. It's kind of hard to see what was actually happening. Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts with episode 6 for that. There's not enough time for that. But yeah, I think overall, I think it's worth watching. I feel like for some people who skipped out on WandaVision, this is more in line with what they like. But I think just the heart of it is there. I think it's worth it just for the emotional moments. It advertises a lot of action, but what you really stay for is the emotional moments with Sam, with Bucky, and just what they have to deal with. If you haven't watched it already, all 6 episodes are out, so it's there for you now.
Definitely. It's on Disney Plus.
I will definitely watch it now.
Yeah. Speaking of struggling with identity and how you can put that to action, Levi, let's talk about Chainsaw Man.
Other than my illusion of the god of glizzies, we speak about Chainsaw Man, which is a manga that I've been reading. I finally caught up and completed the 97th chapter, where I last was, which was about halfway through. And it definitely definitely a good piece of shonen manga, storytelling and everything. I like how it sets a similar tone to what's currently out, which is horror shonen, where it's this subgenre where we are doing shonen elements or topics. We're doing fighting, we're doing all this, but then at the same time too, we're putting gore and horror to further the story. Past chapter 70 or 80, it just keeps going up, and there's just this hole in my heart, because it's just like, what do I do now? Good thing is that the last recent chapter 97, came out a while ago, but it's not the end of the whole series as a whole. It's only just the first part, which was the public safety chapter that has ended. So it's nice to see that the world's still developing, and it's nice that he used the mangaka, the author, Fujimoto. He used that ambiguity and that vagueness to his ability. And yeah, he kind of retcons his own self, where you see certain characters be resurrected or revived. They can't really die. And just can't get enough of it. I'm excited because they are adapting it to a anime by one of my favorite current studios, which has been getting a lot of hype for other works. 2 hot anime of the season, both Attack on Titan final season part 1 and Jujutsu Kaisen. And the story is very similar in regards to, and it's funny because I never really put it together until like the last few chapters. The translation I read, it compared itself. I'm not sure if it was him himself, Fujimoto, or somebody else, maybe an editor, who basically compared it similarities to Jujutsu Kaisen, another horror manga / anime, and Dorohedoro, which both I've been into and I've watched the anime. So it's nice. It felt like a natural progression to get to this, and then you start seeing the parallels. But what overall I guess sells this story is that it has dark humor. There's horror elements really differentiate it. When you have the end of the chapter where it makes sense for any manga, especially it was part of Shonen Jump, which was a weekly serial. Is it weekly? Kent, what was it?
It's weekly.
It's a weekly serialization of manga. Yeah, it seems to fit that framing or beats where by the end of the chapter it's just the setup for another. Which I have read online that he seems to take the horror aspect and then merge it into the Shonen Jump formula, at least when it comes to pacing. Overall, yeah, I just loved it, and this is the art's very, you can't not want, you should read this. I feel like even still it's gonna look beautiful, especially trusting it with Mappa to animate it. The art itself, it's so beautiful. It's very fitting. He does a lot of very sick composition shots where he has a lot of panel breaks involving a devil or a devil's power. There's one specific devil, I forgot his name, the fox devil, where they do like the fox shadow, and then basically off panel in a panel break, it's a part of the body that they summon of this fox devil, and it's just so clever, and the art's just amazing, and it's just so sick. Yeah,
that plays into the rules of like getting a contract with the devils, because the fox devil is actually one of the most common devils that they can have contracts with. That's why like the fox parts are in different body parts of a person, because that fox demon is like willfully having multiple contracts with different people.
All I will say is that this manga does seem like the story revolves around cool character designs, because they're all very distinct and their powers are very distinct as well. Most of the most powerful devils revolve around some aspect of hell, or I guess fear, which powers the devils. So far, like the whole Horsemen of the Apocalypse devils are the weapon ones, including Chainsaw Man, which is very sick. All I will say is that all my homies hate Makima. Girls are disgusting. They only want one thing and one thing only: Denji's heart, Chainsaw Man's heart. Yeah, you can't miss on this. I think this is quintessential current shonen you should be reading.
I'm glad that it's not gonna be in the print Shonen Jump. It's gonna be the digital side. So I feel like the restrictions of being in a print magazine is gonna be lifted from the author. Just because I think Shonen Jump Plus doesn't have that same kind of restrictions where their demographic they have to target of like 10 to 12 year olds. If anything, Kaiju number 8 and like Spy Family shows that like Shonen Jump Plus has like a variety of genres, and can't wait to see what Chainsaw Man does with its new space that it's in. Ryan, would you Would you read this?
Well, I was about to mention, you haven't really described the
Okay.
story
I
for
would
the
actually
listeners who haven't.
I would love to. Okay, so, Chainsaw Man revolves around. So the setting is a world where devils exist, and it's very similar to, or you can see the influence of Jujutsu Kaisen and Bleach, I guess, where it's not afterlife, but it's where devils have powers, and that revolves around the characters. So essentially, the devils make contracts with people, both enemies and the heroes, and essentially they sacrifice an aspect of themselves for this power, and basically you just see the plot lines unfold where you see there's a lot of mystery unfolding. The powers are very sick. They range from, again, this fox devil where you can control a part of its body, to there's a devil named after Santa Claus who can turn people into dolls. Anybody who touches after turns into a doll too. Yeah, how would you explain it? It centers over the main story. Follows Denji, who is this orphaned boy who befriends Pochita, which is the chainsaw devil, who almost through a dying experience they make a contract, which he didn't kind of know at the time. And then he becomes Chainsaw Man, a very sick, very sporadic, very erratic character who all of a sudden becomes the focus and the main target of everybody's desires, and it attracts other devils. And then you see the whole aspect of other devils' impacts on the characters' lives, such as one of the main villains you revealed early on is the Gun Devil, and they explain a lot of atrocities and murders and all that involve guns, and essentially that fear feeds the power of the Gun Devil. And yeah, you'll see that one supporting character, Aki, his brother or his family lost their lives to the Gun Devil.
I think every person knows
basically
somebody
yeah
because
exactly
of the Gun Devil.
Yeah, so yeah, you just see people who have powers contracted from devils. It's very hard to not get too specific without wanting to venture it off to yourself, and because it plays a lot on horror and the unknown. The way they pace it is just, you can't really spoil too much. You just need that just explained.
I think I'll add on, it's also Denji's journey to understand relationships,
Totally,
not just
yes.
romantically, but also like friendships.
Yes.
How you can have a bond with other people, and because of like how his whole backstory is, which you get in like the first chapter, he was so like distanced from society, distanced from people, and his understanding of emotions is stunted. So when he gets the opportunity to be part of this agency to destroy devils, that's him trying to understand what is it like to be part of a group, is also such an endearing journey to look at, because I think that's the main thing that grounds this series, besides all the insane stuff that happens.
Yes.
It's him trying to understand like what it means to be human and what it means to have a bond with that person.
Totally. Denji's character isn't too rounded, or it's not too complex. The highlight is very, very much so the supporting cast and the people who he surrounds himself with. It does change him and does make an influence, but yeah, it's very much this inhuman devil-centric story about being human. And you'll see those beats where, those chapters where it does get human and it does get grounded. You're just like, oh, this was beautifully told, or this is moving. And then sometimes you're just like, what the hell just happened? In like a sick way.
So yeah, Ryan, would you read this?
I mean, I do like the aspect with Denji and his journey. I think that's what I'm more interested in. I mean, obviously the insane stuff will probably tickle my fancy.
Yeah.
So I can see myself wanting to read. I mean, I would like to read it maybe one day, but yes, when the anime comes out, I'll probably maybe check it out wherever it's on.
I can't transition to my topic, so I'll just talk about it. What I have here is a pretty famous web series that was on YouTube a few years ago. It's called Tabletop. I think I watched every episode of Tabletop at least twice, with certain episodes I've watched like 5 times. What Tabletop is a web series where they try to showcase games, explaining the rules, while also showing a play of the game, of the actual game. So every episode they will introduce a game, explain the rules, and then have actual people playing the game. It was such a great show for me to watch because it was a nice introduction to board games. Because before Tabletop, I think most of us just know board games as like Monopoly, Uno, and all that. But Tabletop was such a great show that it introduced so many new board games and how fun it could be, and like that group aspect of like trying to compete with another or work together for a goal in a game. That really interested me. It introduced me to a lot of games I play now, like Codenames, Coup. I played that. There's so many great games there. I think one of the strongest aspects of watching this show is also like the people that are in it. These are people that are friends with Will Wheaton. He's the host. And Will Wheaton is in Star Trek fame. He was Wesley in Star Trek New Generation. I have never watched Star Trek New Generation. It's because he brings it up a lot in the show, and that's how I know about it. But then he just brings his friends to like play games, and I think that's the best part of like playing board games. You just get your friends together and you play a game. And I think that show captures that spirit so well. No matter how high of a production value it is, how highly edited it is, I think capturing that spirit of like playing a game with friends is showcased throughout the show. Because I think the other ones that are like board game focus on YouTube, so like Shut Up and Sit Down and Game the Game, they just explain the rules. And for Game the Game, they also have a actual play, but then it's not as tightly edited as like Tabletop. So you're watching like a 1 hour to 2 hour video, which I don't know. To be honest, not that interesting as opposed to just getting that feeling from Tabletop. There are some, I think all of you would find a certain episode you would like, because there are some people I think y'all would be interested in. Ryan.
There's a lot of people I see. There's Karen Gillan, there's
Karen
Brandon
Gillan.
Routh,
Yeah.
Ashley Johnson, Tara Strong, so many people.
People. Ben 10's in there. Yuri Lowenthal.
Oh,
he's also...
he did Sasuke's.
Yeah,
He did Sasuke's
Sasuke
English.
as well. Yeah. It's amazing because they're all friends with Will. I'm like, these so well connected. I was like a NASA engineer was also there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Chris Hardwick.
Chris Hardwick's also there. Seth Green is
my
also
God.
there. Like Seth Green and Will Wheaton apparently are like childhood friends, so no wonder they're in the show.
I see Kamal Nanjiani's in here.
Yeah, that's before he was buff. Yeah.
But still, I'm surprised he's friends with Will Wheaton. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's not. Mostly it's friends, but also it's like just people who they just connect with. They're like, hey, you want to come on the show? I think that was also what they have. Yeah, Red and Link is also there. Ryan Higa, Freddie Wong is there. There's so many people that even if not only in the YouTube space, but also like, actual celebrities, they're in there. And it's such a great way for them to show that side of them, that playful side. But yeah, I think the overall show just has that spirit of like what it means to like play games with friends, and highly recommend the show. I am so sad that it ended due to unfortunate circumstances. It was you can read all about it if you search it up. I don't need to like echo what has already been said. Even I think the host Will Wheaton doesn't want to talk about it anymore. I think it's just beat down to death about that whole situation. But Tabletop episodes are still online, and I highly recommend it to people who are interested in board games and what it's like to play.
How long are these episodes?
Do
they range?
Yeah, they do range. I think the earlier seasons it was like half an hour, but as like the seasons go by, there's 4 seasons. They're averaging around like 45 minutes, which is like a digestible time for like watching an entire game being played out.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like they like Catan, like that's a long game.
Yeah. What they do is like as like after you like get settled with like the rules and like the play style, they would like speed up the game. Like they would just like intermission. They would just show like snippets of like what happened in between time, and then you'll be in turn 2, and then they'll just skip to turn 5 or like turn 6 because they're like, these are the things that happened. Here's some footage from there. Here are the main things that happened. We'll skip now. That's why it's like such a good show to like understand a game, because first they'll like let you in on like how the game is played, and then there's like the drama of the later half of the episode where who's gonna win and all that. I think if a game is too long, they'll split into parts, because I know like the bigger games they split into 2. Like I just watched Fury of Dracula with Grant Imahara, R.I.P. Yeah, that's split into 2 episodes and all that. I think it's digestible enough if you're gonna watch a whole board game being played out.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at these games, there are recognizable games. There are games that I'm interested in like wanting to play. So yeah, I would be interested in checking this out.
And if you want to feel old, they were released 7 years ago. Some of them. So, so yeah. I would say if you're like going into it, there's no lore, I guess. Maybe the only lore is that Will's bad at dice rolling, but I think like if you just want to watch a show, an episode, just find a person that you know and see how they play. Karen Gillan, I think you mentioned her before. The game's Libertalia, that was a fun episode.
Where can people find this?
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all there. Just search up Tabletop. Usually the first thing that pops up. Usually also if you like are interested in a game, if Tabletop did it, that's usually the first thing that pops up. It was that popular.
I see the Fine Brothers played.
Yes, the Fine Brothers did play, and they didn't have to pay to have their reactions. So,
Wow.
Oh, what I would say, speaking of reactions, they splice together like talking heads. So if like a move is being played, they would like cut to them in like a colored screen talking about the move they just made. So it adds to like the drama and also like adds to them thinking about the moves. So it's also nice to get like a player insight of like what they were thinking when they were playing the game.
Oh, is it like used to seriousness or like a bit of comedy as well?
It's both.
Okay.
Like oh, if I only had like this card, blah blah blah, or like just for comedic effect sometimes. Like I think the running gag for like Yuri Lowenthal is that every time he has a talking head, he's eating something more and more. Like his plate gets bigger and bigger. So yeah.
Okay, well, the more I'm hearing, I'm liking it more and more, so I might check it out.
Is there any special criteria to how they decide a game? Is it based on their guest or?
I think from what I haven't seen like a lot of behind the scenes, but I think from like Will, he just wants to play a game that he thinks would be good for the show and would be good to like play with friends. I think they made that criteria well because like every game that I played from that show, like solid to like have a good experience with. Well, it seems like the Spirit Warden doesn't like us using the spirit energy to power our podcast. So I guess that's our time to leave. Like, as we wrap up, we want to thank you all, our listeners, for listening to the very first episode of Power Outage. We might return to the spirit world to like record the other reactions and recaps of the last 6 episodes of Mystic Pop-Up Bar. But thank you all for listening. We are Power Outage. My name is Kent. I am with Ryan and Levi, and we'll see you all next time.
See you.
Alright, good first episode, everybody. Let's just head back home. There's power in our house, so yeah.
Since we are going to be coming back to do the second part of Mystic Pop-Up Bar, should we just leave the equipment up here, or do we need to bring it back to Earth with us?
Yeah, we could just leave it here. Alright, it's a spirit world. No one's gonna steal anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Who really cares?
It's like the good place. You know, everyone's good here, so we'll just leave it up here. We trust people.
Yeah. Okay.
Even spirits these days are trying to start a podcast. It's like everybody wants to start a podcast. It's like the whole new generation of let's start a band, let's start a book club. You know, once people do this, who knows if they're even going to commit to it. Look at these 3 spirits just lazing about. God. Maybe we should start a podcast talking about these losers. Oh, wait. Is this still recording right now? God. My God. How do we delete this stuff?